So the cars are on their formation lap ahead of round 13 of the 2021 F3 Cup Championship here at Donington Park. Their final race of what has been a busy weekend, 3 races to get through. Let's just bring you the grid and the way that they will line up. Pole position will go the way of the number 28 car of Stefano Lini, and alongside is going to be number 66 John Corbett, with row 2 of the grid being Dominic Paul and Shane Kelly, who won the race earlier on today. Row 3 of the grid is Tony Bishop, who lines up alongside former champion George Lyne, and the final row of the grid will see Mark Harrison on his own. There will be nobody on an 8th position. So we've had 2 races, we've had 2 different winners. Shane Kelly won the race yesterday, I should say, rather, and Stefano Lini claimed top honours in the race earlier on today, claiming his 10th victory out of 12 races. And the only 2 that he hasn't won, one where he won on the road at Brands Hatch but was given a time penalty which bumped him down to 6th, and the other one was yesterday whilst he was leading the race dominantly, made a mistake at Coppice Corner, put the car in the gravel and was out of the race on what was, at the time, the penultimate lap. So Stefano Lini has so far won either all of the races or all bar one of the races, so if everything goes to plan, he should be top step of the podium in this one as well, and I think then will mathematically probably put the championship out of sight. You accumulate your points in your own separate class. In reality, the regulations were originally written it was overall finishing positions, but they did change the regs so that if you're in one of the newer European specification cars, those built slightly later, then you then accumulate separate points to those that are running in the F3 Cup class, which caters for cars, chassis and engines that were utilised and built and raced between the start of 2008 and the end of 2016, whereas the Euro class is for those that comply with the 2018 or 2019 Euro Formula Open regulations. So what in reality, if you hark back to where it will have come from, the Euro Formula Open was Spanish Formula 3 in reality is what it used to be called, but over the years it's become more of a European-based championship and has seen lots of British drivers go over to compete in it. So they are sort of the newer cars with better aero and have significant better performance as a result compared to the slightly older Dallaras, but they're still quick cars nonetheless. Green flag waves for the final time this weekend. We're about to get our race underway. 15-minute race. Stefano Lini and John Corbett on the front row of the grid. The lights are about to go out now, and we get the race underway. John Corbett was a little bit slower away. Oh, and there's contact already between himself and Dominic Paul. Bits of bodywork flying up into the sky. Stefano Lini leads, and I think that's called suspension. No, he's got a rear puncture for Dominic Paul. You can see the left rear is punctured, so it is going to be Stefano Lini that leads. It is Shane Kelly that's there in 2nd place, and in 3rd position, that looks as though it is Tony Bishop that's there in 3rd place. 4th place is John Corbett. 5th is George Lyne. 6th is going to be Mark Harrison, and I'm afraid to say a left rear puncture for the Chris Dittman Racing prepared car of Dominic Paul. And well, that was all at the start really, where John Corbett got the slow start. Dominic Paul got a really good start, had to jink out to avoid hitting the car ahead, and as he did, he made contact with the slightly slower starting John Corbett, and I think it was a sort of a barge board almost that must have flown off John Corbett's car, and that was sufficient, that little bit of contact, to puncture the Pirelli tyre on Dominic Paul's car, so he should make it back round to the pit lane. The Chris Dittman guys will have, I'm sure, spare tyres on hand, but the damage is done, I'm afraid, and Dominic Paul, who finished on the podium in the first race of the weekend and was 5th earlier on today, is going to struggle to, I think, remain on the lead lap in this one. So out of the Melbourne hairpin, already Stefano Lini, as he has done so much this season, starting to stretch the legs nice and early on. Shane Kelly in 2nd place is the leading F3 Cup car for those built between 2008 and the 2016 championship seasons. But he has got, not that far behind him, Tony Bishop and John Corbett, both of whom run in the Formula Euro class in reality. Lini, understandably, with the fastest lap of the race on the first lap as he's streaked away. That 1:30 should be down to something like a 1:23 maybe, subject to weather conditions. It's dry out there, but the ambient temperature might just have fallen away a little bit, so we should be into the 1:23, is about 7 seconds quicker, but the 1:30 of course was a standing start for Stefano Lini, and he is already 1.8 seconds to the good, and at the wheel of the CF Racing prepared car, looking to try and make good his escape here from that man there, the University of Wolverhampton prepared number 11 car in the hands of Shane Kelly. Into the pit lane only now comes Dominic Paul. I did say it would take a long time for him to work his way into the pit lane. And I'm sure the Chris Dittman team will go to work to try and service that car. The first thing they need to do is check there's no suspension damage or anything other, and as long as they're happy that it's safe, they'll send it back out. So bouncing over the curbs goes the number 66 car of John Corbett. You can see already off is coming the left rear. On is going a brand new sticker tyre by the look of it, so it's a brand new tyre that's going on. I think it's Chris Dittman that's actually on the wheel gun as well. Yes, it is. Chris Dittman is the man who's on the wheel gun there, the man who owns the team, getting his hands mucky. And out goes Dominic Paul into the race, so they're clearly happy that it was just a puncture and no further damage. But I did say Dominic Paul would struggle to remain on the lead lap, and look what happens. Out of pit lane he comes, instantly goes off the lead lap, and I think is doing the really sensible thing here, Dominic Paul. He's waiting at pit lane exit, he knows he's off the lead lap, he'll let his Chris Dittman teammate go through, and then he'll get on with the race, and that is very intelligent driving from Dominic Paul. You know, he has been around a good period of time. Of course he'll want a good result, but the good result is gone. You know, letting all of those cars through is not going to worsen his position. All he's done is drop onto the back of the pack, which allows him, gives him something to chase, rather than hold up cars, have blue flags, get in people's way. He is certainly going to have made, I would like to think, a few friends with that one. He probably has got plenty already, but that was really good driving from Dominic Paul, just to wait until everybody had gone through and then feed his way back out into the race. Stefano Lini heads in towards the braking area for the S's, quickly through it. Don't need to brake much in these cars, just a quick brake and downshift a gear or two, and then downshift a few more gears, and make sure you don't lock the wheels going in towards the hairpin. Different lines taken through the hairpin. Some drivers sweep to the apex, others try and triangulate it and take a slightly later apex since you can get on the throttle maybe a little bit earlier coming out. But for Stefano Lini, 1:26.476 last time through, meant that he led by 2.5 seconds compared to Shane Kelly. This time through, it's a 1:25.697, and he now leads by 3.5 seconds. That's another new fastest lap of the race. Remember, should be down into the 1:23s, I think, by the time Stefano Lini gets everything up to temperature and decides how far he wants to push, really. So through the Craner curve, Shane Kelly, Tony Bishop and John Corbett. Tony Bishop finished on the podium in the race earlier on today in 3rd position. That equalled his best result of the season so far, Tony Bishop. He took the 3rd place in the 2nd of the 2 races at Snetterton. He took the 3rd place in the 2nd of the 2 races here at Donington Park. And well, he is at the moment in 3rd place here as well. There's John Corbett that sits behind him. The gap from Bishop to Corbett was 0.6, almost 0.7 of a second as they started the lap. So the only F3 Cup car we've got inside the top 4 at the moment is Shane Kelly. His is a Dallara F308, whereas the car that leads and the 2 cars behind him are all in the Euro F3 class, and those are Dallara F317s, so the best part of, what, 9 years newer, the chassis, than Shane Kelly's. You can certainly see in terms of the aerodynamics and the design of the car that there's a lot more front wing on the cars that sit behind him. It's a raised nose, a much higher raised nose on the cars as well, but they do have a smaller air restrictor on those cars. It's a larger air restrictor on Shane Kelly's. You can see that, you can see the air restrictor out the side of the engine bay. You can see that sort of circular area. Shane Kelly's, it's a little bit wider than the cars that sit behind. Now Stefano Lini, another new fastest lap of the race, 1:24.606, so perhaps another 0.6 of a second to find before he gets himself into the 1:23 second bracket, which is where I strongly suspect he will be by the end of this race. Up towards Coppice Corner, and out of it has already gone Stefano Lini, 5.2 seconds to the good as he works his way in towards the S's. This is lap number 5. How things currently stand. We've managed to get 11 laps out of the previous 15 minutes, so I think they've all stayed green all of the way as well, the F3 Cup races. So through the corner, you can see working hard at the wheel is Stefano Lini, his CF Racing prepared car. That's Huell Lloyd's team, based down in Wales. Might be an Italian flag on the side of Stefano Lini's car, but very much the Welsh accent. And as he heads over the start-finish line now. Looks as though the gap between himself and Shane Kelly is opening up ever more. Consistent lapping also from Stefano Lini. Now John Corbett has got himself ahead of Tony Bishop on that lap. Now that would have happened towards the tail end of the lap, where Tony Bishop was, well, he was slower through all three sectors really, and that was what really just allowed Corbett to squeeze his way through. So John now up into third place. Hasn't had a podium as yet so far this weekend. He had a 5th and a 7th, but he's in the podium spots at the moment, is John. As for the 6th time of asking, he turns his way through McLean's corner and up towards Coppice, the blind entry, double apex right-hander. Because of the brow at the hill, you just can't see the apex, so you get on the brakes, you pitch your car in towards the corner, you grab the first apex, but just let the car run towards the middle part of the circuit for the second apex, and then make sure you run all the way towards the very edge curb on the exit of the corner, and then move the car over from the left to the right to get onto the brakes for the S's, where they've just gone through at the moment. 6.5 minutes remaining. Now, can John Corbett do anything about catching up with Shane Kelly? Through the first sector of the lap, he was 0.3 of a second quicker. He was a further 0.2 of a second quicker, the number 66 car, through the second sector of the lap. So what was a 1.9, almost a 2-second gap from number 11 Shane Kelly in second place to John Corbett in third, is going to come down absolutely. It's now down to 1.1 seconds between the pair of them, while Stefano Lini continues to chip away at the best lap time of the race. 1 minute 24.179 now for Stefano Lini, meaning he enjoys an 8.5 second lead between himself and this lot of three cars here fighting over second, third and fourth position. Now John Corbett is starting to fall back into the clutches of Tony Bishop again, who seems to have got the fire back in his belly once more. This will be for third and fourth in the race, but second and third in the F3 Euro class. So through Coppice corner, Tony Bishop will be starting to get the toe down the straight, but that will also pick up the dirty air through the corners and just take a bit of the airflow off the front wing of the car in particular, which might just cause it to understeer a little bit. And that, I think, is what's allowing John Corbett just to pull away again a little bit more now. So in towards the braking area for the Melbourne hairpin. They're on lap number 7 at the moment. 11 laps we managed to squeeze out of the previous races. Certainly yesterday's race held in beautiful sunshine, where Shane Kelly took the win. He's in second in this race. And the race earlier on today, where Stefano Lini took the win, who has just managed to get himself into the 1 minute 23 second bracket. I did say we'd be down into the 1 minute 23s, and Stefano Lini has got there at the end of lap number 7. 1 minute 23.937 is the fastest lap of the race. He now leads by 11.1 seconds. There's the car that's 5th and second of the F3 Cup cars. That's the 2016 champion George Line. This car also entered by the University of Wolverhampton, one of several universities nowadays in the UK where, if you're studying motorsport engineering, you can get your hands onto a fully competitive car. There's a couple of universities that enter cars into national championships here, and some of them very high-profile national championships as well. And it gives the students not just the opportunity to come and watch some motor racing and get involved, but it's all well and good learning motorsport engineering in a classroom environment, but to do it in a live competitive environment is a very, very good opportunity. And I think every time I've spoken to any of the students that are either involved in Shane Kelly's car or George Line's, they are relishing the opportunity, and it makes such a very different dynamic to their motorsport engineering degrees. Now Dominic Paul is catching cars ahead, but remember, he is off the lead lap, so after that puncture he is still playing catch-up with the cars ahead of him, and there's no chance of him really improving his position in the race, but he's now hot onto the heels of his teammate. We had a new fastest lap of the race again for Stefano Lini, 1 minute 23.679, meaning the lead advantage grows to 13.5 seconds. Dominic Paul closing in on his teammate, which is going to be the car of Mark Harrison that lies ahead. Mark Harrison's car is, well, it's the same as Shane Kelly's really. It's the Dallara F308, and Shane Kelly has been picked off on this lap by John Corbett, who is now also looking to try and pull away, but Tony Bishop wants to join in on the fun and try and make it another Euro F3 car that picks up third position. So Shane Kelly passed by one car, still leading his class at this stage, but he's now got Tony Bishop in his slipstream, who jinxed one way, jinxed the other. Tony Bishop is going to go through, and Shane Kelly, I think, will let him there, because there's no point fighting with a car that's not in your class in reality. He will still pick up the same amount of championship points as otherwise he would. Now, have we had this year the top three be nothing but F3 Euro cars? Yes, we did. We did at Silverstone at the second round of the championship, where Stefano Lini won, John Corbett was second and Tony Bishop was third. But that is the only occasion so far this season that F3 Euro class cars have occupied the top three. So there's a minute and 45 to go, which means that Stefano Lini is on to his 10th lap, and as long as nothing else happens, we should be good to go 11 laps again in this race. So down through the Craner curves they'll go. They've still got 3 further championship races to come up at Snetterton in what will be just next weekend. I think they're on the programme down there at Snetterton on the 25th of September for what I think is just scheduled to be a single day meeting as well, which means that they're going to have a very, very busy weekend to not just re-prep the cars, but also cram in all 3 races over the course of one day. Yes, they are. Yeah, they're down at Snetterton just next weekend. And considering it's a one-day meeting, yeah, they've got 1 race in the morning, 2 races in the afternoons, and only a few days really to prep the cars, and maybe head down to Snetterton on the Thursdays that they'll test on the Friday. I'll have to wait and see. But back-to-back weekends are never ideal, I would say, for teams and drivers, because it doesn't give them huge amounts of time to get back to where they were, particularly for poor old CF Racing, based in Wales. So they've got to go from Donington Park all the way back to Wales, re-prep the cars, and then drive from Wales to Norfolk. They may choose to just prep the cars on the truck and drive over to Norfolk in a day or so's time. But down through the Craner curves goes Stefano Lini. He was pushing hard still by the look of things down through Craner. Doesn't look as though he's eased his pace a great deal at all, Stefano Lini. And he overstepped the mark very slightly yesterday when he skittered off, but I think he's conscious that that was a uncharacteristic mistake and won't make it again. But you can see he's still not eased his pace a great deal on this final lap of the race. Out of Coppice Corner, the clock now ticks to 0, which means the checkered flag will greet Stefano Lini next time through, and that will be win number 11 of the championship season for Stefano Lini, for what, as I say, has been a really solid season for him, and, well, a pretty dominant season at that as well. So Stefano Lini just working his way out of the Melbourne hairpin. He's about to head up towards Goddard's, and as he turns his way through Goddard's corner, the checkered flag will be waved, and Stefano Lini comes through to claim his 2nd win of the weekend, his 11th win of the 2021 championship season. We should see John Corbett hang on to 2nd place. He's not got that much daylight between himself and Tony Bishop, but Tony's too far away as they head in towards the final corner. So John Corbett is going to come through to finish in 2nd place. That's his first podium of the weekend and equals his best result of the season so far. Tony Bishop comes through to finish in 3rd place and make it, for the 2nd time this season, a clean sweep of Euro F3 cars on the podium. Shane Kelly finishes in 4th position, but will win his class in the F3 Cup. 5th place will go the way of George Lyne. Number 90, Mark Harrison, will finish in 6th position, and the number 8 car of poor old Dominic Paul, with that puncture, will take the checkered flag behind his Chris Dittman Racing teammate, but a full lap behind him and the rest of the field as well following that pit stop. So Dominic Paul takes the checkered flag at the wheel of his Dallara F312 and will finish in 7th position. So the cars making their way round and in towards the pit lane area, and for Stefano Lini, it's not been the perfect weekend. Otherwise, it certainly could have been, had it not been for that penultimate lap of the race yesterday, and will Coppice Corner, but he waves to the marshals, a big thumbs up from him. I think mathematically the championship is done and dusted for Stefano Lini. and well, he's been the man to beat all season, really. Say his worst finish of the season was this weekend, a non-finish. His other worst finish of the season was 6th place, but that was only because he was given a time penalty at Brands Hatch for going beyond the circuit limits. But it could potentially have been a clean sweep of victories in the season at this point, with still just 3 races to go at Donington Park. So the car's heading down the pit lane. That's confirmed the results for you for the final F3 Cup Championship race of the weekend. The win goes the way of Stefano Lini, who claims victory. In 2nd place, it was John Corbett. Dominant victory in the end of 21 seconds between himself and John Corbett. Tony Bishop was there in 3rd place. Shane Kelly wins the F3 Cup class in 4th place, ahead of George Line in 5th, and Mark Harrison in 6th place. And a lap off the lead was Dominic Paul, following his puncher at the very start. So that is the final results for our last F3 Cup race of the weekend here at Donington Park. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen, and hopefully we'll see you all very soon indeed. So from myself, Mark Werrell, and the whole team here at Donington Park, it's goodbye.